would you do if I told you there's a Formula One team that's supposed to be Red Bull's little sibling, but sometimes it looks more like an experiment gone rogue? For years, the team we now call Racing Bulls has been seen as nothing more than Red Bull's junior squad, a stepping stone for young drivers before they move up to the big leagues. But every once in a while, something strange happens. A so-called rookie outperforms expectations. A so-called backup team suddenly wins a race, and we start asking, are Racing Bulls really just a junior team, or is there something bigger happening here? To understand where this is heading, we need to go back, way back. Formula One has always been a battleground for legendary manufacturers. Ferrari, Mercedes, McLaren, decades of racing heritage, billions in resources, and the world's best engineers. Then, in 2005, an energy drinks company crashes the party. Red Bull didn't just enter F1. They took over. They didn't want to be just another sponsor with a logo on the car. They wanted full control. They bought Jaguar Racing, a struggling midfield team Ford had abandoned. But where Jaguar failed, Red Bull saw opportunity. They poured money, brought in Adrian Newey, the mastermind behind 12 constructors and 13 drivers titles. And in just a 5-year span, they were on top. By 2010, Red Bull had won their first championship with Sebastian Vettel. Today, with Max Verstappen, they've become one of F1's most dominant forces. But unlike Ferrari or Mercedes, Red Bull did something no other team even considered. They bought another team. Think of it, it's like a Michelin star chef also running a food truck. The second team wasn't just a testing ground, it had ambitions of its own, and that's where things got interesting. And this is just a gentle reminder that once we hit 5,000 subs, we are starting with our giveaways. With so many F1 channels out there, ask yourself, when was the last time you saw one that wanted to reward their subscribers with rewards for their free subscription? The long-term goal with this channel would be to send people to races. So maybe comment below if you have subscribed so that I can personally thank you. Anyway, I think I'm getting a bit sidetracked. Let's keep it moving. Before it was Racing Bulls, before it was AlphaTauri, even before it was Toro Rosso, this team had a very different name. It was called Minardi, a small, underfunded team from Italy founded in Faenza in 1979 by Giancarlo Minardi. They weren't winning races, but they had one thing going for them, an eye for talent. Drivers like Fernando Alonso and Mark Webber got their start in F1 with Minardi. Then, in 2005, Red Bull bought them out for around $30 million. They rebranded the team to Toro Rosso, which literally means Red Bull in Italian. At first, Toro Rosso was exactly what Red Bull intended, a place to test young drivers before moving them up to the big leagues. But here's where things get weird. Sometimes, that little food truck serves better dishes than the 5-star restaurant. Like in 2008, when a 21-year-old Sebastian Vettel won in a Toro Rosso at Monza, a junior team was never supposed to win a race before the senior team, and yet they did. And as the years went by, this development team started looking less like a farm system and more like a wild experiment. I mean, if it's just a feeder team, why did they start developing their own cars? Why did they start experimenting with different chassis designs? Separate from Red Bull, the idea was simple. Red Bull Racing was supposed to be the Michelin star restaurant, Toro Rosso the food truck. So in the moment when the food truck serves up something that makes a restaurant take notice, no matter how good that dish is, the head chefs always have the final say. And sometimes they swap the ingredients mid-service. Take the Liam Lawson and Yuki Tsunoda debacle of 2025. Lawson was promoted to Red Bull, chosen over Tsunoda for his raw potential and self-confidence, and maybe also because he flipped the bird to Perez. These qualities made Red Bull believe that he could handle the pressure of being Verstappen's teammate. But just 2 races after, it was clear Lawson was struggling to cook at this level. His lack of pace, difficulty adapting to the RB21, and visible frustration forced Red Bull to act fast. Enter Tsunoda, the more experienced chef with 4 years under his belt that everyone besides Red Bull knew was ready, was called up from Racing Bulls to steady the ship, while Lawson was sent back to refine his skills in a familiar kitchen. kitchen. Red Bull called it a driver rotation, but make no mistake, it was a clear signal that the junior team is a testing ground, not a rival. This has happened before. Gasly, Albon, both had their shot at Red Bull, or maybe more truthfully, their bright and burning light was snuffed out by the one we call Max, and they were promptly kicked to the curb. Red Bull will always take what works and discard what doesn't. Despite moments of brilliance from Racing Bulls, they have never truly challenged the top team, because at the end of the day, the food truck is not meant to outshine the restaurant. It is just where Red Bull experiments before serving their finest dish. Racing Bulls may have its moments of brilliance, but make no mistake, they will never be Red Bull Racing's equal. The reason? Purpose. Red Bull Racing exists to win championships. Every decision, every dollar, every piece of engineering is focused on one goal: domination. Racing Bulls, they exist to develop talent. Their job is to test young drivers, experiment with new ideas, and sometimes act as a strategic tool for Red Bull's benefit. It's like comparing two football clubs. One is built to win the Champions League, the other is a youth academy designed to train future stars. Sure, Racing Bulls gets upgrades, but they don't get the same resources, engineering focus, or strategic freedom as Red Bull Racing. Their job is to support, not to lead. However, in 2026, something interesting is happening. Racing Bulls will switch to Red Bull's Ford powertrains. This means that they will no longer rely on Honda and will be fully integrated into Red Bull's future engine projects. Could this shift the balance? Probably not, because in the end, no matter how good the understudy is, the lead role always belongs to Red Bull Racing. At the end of the day, Racing Bulls will always be an experimental kitchen, not the main Michelin star restaurant. Sure, every now and then, a dish turns out so incredible that it could belong on the main menu. 2008, Vettel serves up a shock win for Toro Rosso. 2020, Pierre Gasly plays a masterpiece out of nowhere and gets promoted. And in 2025, Yuki Tsunoda has been cooking up some of the best performances of his career. But here's the thing, when something truly special comes out of the small kitchen, Red Bull Racing takes that recipe. They take the best drivers, the best ideas, the best moments, and bring them to the main team. Meanwhile, Racing Bulls goes back to experimenting, testing, and developing. So, will they ever become a true rival to Red Bull? Not as long as Red Bull owns them. They'll always be a proving ground, a stepping stone, a place where future champions learn the craft. But who knows, maybe one day Racing Bulls will create something so good that even Red Bull Racing can't ignore it. Until then, they'll keep cooking in the background, waiting for their next breakthrough dish.